There. Okay, the Haggadah was written during the times of the Mishnah and the Talmud, believed to be about 300 of the Common Era. It's not clear who wrote it. There are some people who even suggest that Yehuda Nasi wrote the Haggadah, but it basically is written in 280 or the Common Era, or 300 of the Common Era. One thing clearly that Chazal tried to do on the night of the Seder is to create a program of 15 steps, 15-step program of great Aliyah. The 15 steps that the Seder has mimics the 15 steps that are in the Beis HaMikdash. Every step we take a very, very secure step, and we transform ourselves the night of Pesach. This idea of transformation and the ability to change ourselves seems to be at the root of the minhag that we say L'shana Haba b'Yushalayim at the end of the night. There are only 2 times a year that we say L'shana Haba b'Yushalayim. One day is on Yom Kippur, and one day is on Pesach. Yom Kippur, it takes us 25 hours of fasting to get to L'shana Haba b'Yushalayim, which is a spiritual level. 25 hours on Pesach, one could do that in the 2-3 hours they have, or the 4 hours they have for the Seder. This is an understanding of some complicated words according to the Hasidic masters. The Hasidic masters look at the Halach Ma'anya, which is the paragraph we say as we invite everyone to be comfortable. We say called the tzarech, whoever needs, called the chifin yes v'yechal, whoever needs it, come and eat. Called ditzrich, whoever needs it, yes v'yivsach, come and join in the Pesach festival. There seems to be redundancy there. Once you say that anybody who needs it, so one of the questions I would ask at the Seder is, what's the depth of this idea? Whoever needs it comes and eats. Whoever wants to join, come and join the Pesach festival. The Hasidim, of course, suggest that the word yitzach, as in the word jump, means come and eat. Whoever wants to eat, come and eat. We're going to have a physical gewaldik. But if you want to be yitzach, if you want to jump in the ruchnias, come and jump in ruchnias, because this is the night that we're going to jump by following the prescription of the 15 steps, which leads us to our main question of this first Torah. We're going to say 2 or 3, and that is, a step needs to be secure. A step is independent. Yet when you look at the steps of the Haggadah, we'll notice only one of them is connected with another one, and that is the first 2. Kadesh, Orchatz. We don't say Uyachatz. We don't say Ukarpas. So the question that you would ask at your Seder table to conjure a discussion would be, why? What's the symbolism of the idea that it's Kadesh, Orchatz? Orchatz is with above. Vav connects the Kadesh and Orchatz. That's the question that we're going to have to deal with. Many of the commentators suggest that the Kadesh Orchatz combination is referring to this idea of Sur Meirah to Aseh Tov. Kadesh is the Aseh Tov. Be Mekadesh yourselves. But how can you do that? Only where you first wash away the Tumah. Which leads us to the question that it's out of order. If Kadesh Orchatz has anything to do, and that's, it's all symbolism. It's reversed. It's all symbolism, obviously, and that's what we're trying to do, to dash it.
Ironically, it's reversed.
It's reversed.
It's the night of the Seder.
And it's the night of the Seder. And the answer is, that's the godless of the Seder. That's the godless of the Seder. That's the Yitzhak. The Yitzhak means that Kadosh Baruch Hu, every year, is doing the same chesed that he did on Pesach. What was the chesed he did on Pesach? It was unnatural. We didn't deserve it. We didn't deserve it. Halal avodah zarah, halal avodah zarah. It was a good taina. It was a great taina. Halal avodah zarah. It only took effect by the Yam Suf, but the same kasha came by Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why are you jumping over the houses of the dead people? Elamai, what do we see from here? The reason why the Kadesh and Orchatz, the Sur Meirah Aseh Tov, is in the opposite direction is teaching us that on Pesach, we could mamish jump before we get rid of the tumah. We could mamish have aliyahs, unbelievable aliyahs in the night of Pesach, even without the Somerah. We have to take care of the Somerah. Obviously, you can't not take care of the Somerah, but Chazal want us to capture this idea that we can do an asitay before we go to Somerah. Drasha number 2. We know that we have 4 cups of wine.
You can only do such a thing on Pesach.
Pesach is unique. Yom Kippur, you can get to the same level, but Yom Kippur has to be 24-hour fasting. Here we have a tremendous, unbelievable possibilities to have a unbelievable spiritual experience if we're focused on the right things.
Is that what we don't say Shema? We don't say Shema on Pesach?
It's allowed Shemurim. It's allowed Shemurim. It's allowed Shemurim.
Right.
Yeah, but through this mishpacha and through this coming together family and through this simcha of a mitzvah, we could, according to the Sfarim, we can get great levels of kedusha. Okay, 4 cups of wine. We all studied in yeshiva. The reason for the 4 cups of wine is because it's AC, it's healthy, lakachti, would have missed.
No,
Haves is out. Okay. Each 4 has one of the 4 lishanis, and the 5th case we'll have to talk about. We'll have to talk that about another time. There is an unbelievable Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi suggests an entire reason that's mind-boggling. And the Yerushalmi says that the reason we have 4 cases of wine at the Haggadah is to remember the 4 times that the Torah records the word kos by the dream of the butler. By the dream of the butler. What does one do with the other one? What does one do with the other? What's the end of it? What's the one have to do with the other? What's the depth of the Yerushalmi's Torah? What's the connection? Why are we visioning on the night of Pesach the butler? What does he have to do with anything? It's a guy. What do you have to do with anything? So the aside is to try to figure out what Yosef understood. In other words, how did Yosef hear from the dreams of the butler and the baker that one of them will survive and one will not survive? How did Yosef know that? And the answer is, I forgot who says this, but the answer is by him hearing the dream itself and the way the dream was related. If you read the dream of the butler says he saw vines and the vines started to grow and I started to squeeze wine and I brought it to Paro. That was his dream. The butler's dream was, that was the butler. The baker's dream was, I stood there, passive. I had a basket of bread on my head, and the birds came to eat it. So what did Yosef hear? One guy had a dream, but a tchukah to live. One guy had a desire to get out of this mess and to be able to continue. He saw in that vitality. He saw in that chiyas. She'ifa. He saw in that she'ifa. The baker he saw was dead. There was no she'ifa, and in his interpretation was the guy's not going to survive because of the fact that in the dream itself. So what do you see here? What do you see here? You see that if a person dreams, even a guy, if a person dreams and he has a positive attitude and he knows he's going to survive, he will survive. He will survive. And that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's what Chazal tried to capture over here. We're using 4 cups of wine to remember the Kais because even though the Seder was said throughout generations, the Klai Yisrael was in terrible shape. Achim Day was terrible. How are they going to have a Seder? How can we celebrate as free men when we're being tortured? How is that even shaykh? What's the answer? The answer is the Kais of the butler. Because if you remember the Kais of the butler, and he survived because he had a she'ifa, he had a desire, he had a dream that one day he'll be free. If you have a dream one day you'll be free, you'll be free. Okay.
Is that the explanation why it's wine specifically? Because he was.
Yeah, so we have to talk about that as another good question. Why wine? Some people say because wine gets better as it gets older, the more you
No, I'm
drink.
saying, but specifically the Sarah Mashkim, I mean, his entire job was.
Wine, the connection to wine. Yeah, of course, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Okay, let's do
We
it.
see that we had a chukka to get out.
You-
We cried out because of suffering and pain.
But we now have to have a chukka. We now have to have the dream. The side of the 4 kaises is for Klai Yisrael to understand the same way they're going to take them out. They took them out of Mitzrayim when all bets were off. Hashem will help us all when we're we conjure the vision of the butler to do this. Okay, let me share one more final Dvar Torah. If for any reason we decide we want to go next week with a small group, we'll make a decision together. Maybe we'll say some more next week. But okay, let's do one more Dvar Torah quickly. The karpas. Karpas, we all know we dip a vegetable into water. Time of the base of Migdash, where we had Tum and Tahara, that's a simple shot. We had to be makbid on Tum and Tahara on a higher level, and they wouldn't dip things into water because water is machshel l'tumah. And when you're cooking your vegetables, you're being machshel l'tumah, and therefore they whited. But there's an unbelievable rishon named Rabbeinu Manoach that I say every single year. It's fantastic. He says that when we're getting the karpas, the only thing we're interested in eating because we're starving. Everybody cheats and gets a little more than a kazayas. Maybe it's a kazayas or not. But he says, unbelievable. When we do the dipping in the water for karpas, we're supposed to conjure in our minds another dipping that was done in the Torah. What dipping?
Yes,
The dipping of Yosef HaTzadik's coat in the blood. Because the beginnings of Yetzias Mitzrayim and the Shibud happened through Sinas Chinam. It happened through Sinas Chinam. And therefore, Ki Yedua, the night of Tisha B'Av, the day of the week that Tisha B'Av falls out, is always going to be the same night as the Seder is going to come out. To connect us and to remind us that if we're going to be able to be free one day, and we're going to have the Mashiach Tzidkenu, it's only going to come through Achdus and through rectifying the sins. So that dipping in the salt water, we know our tears, we learned our tears, the very sorrowful dipping. That dipping is supposed to remind us of another dipping, and that's the karpas. It is a pliya. Then when you look at the word ksodas pasim in the Torah, the first time it's used, when Yosef bought ksodas pasim, and Rashi translates the words ksodas pasim, you're not going to believe it, but he translates it as karpas. And we see it in Megillah, Chor karpas utchelas. Karpas is actually a fine wall. So there's a connection to this idea in the Rashi himself, ksodas pasim, which is a connection. Okay, I hand over the night to Rabbi Loew Shlita.
Is Aaron on or not? Is Aaron on?
Someone's on. Chaim, I think.
Chaim Dovid?
Chaim.
So we start off with Manishtana Laila Zeh. The Aruch HaShulchan says we knock at the lashon of the pasuk, because why does it say in the pasuk how we describe this mitzvah? It says, "V'hayik yeshilcha bencha," your son is going to ask you, "Mazos, what is this?" So it means ma, means what. The other translation of the word ma means spoil, meaning how much, how great. For example, we say ma tova halecha Yaakov. Ma doesn't mean what is great about your tents. It means how much is greatness in your tents. Ma gadlu ma'asecha. How great are your ma'asim? So the word ma either means what or means how much. Yesh beis minhagim. There are two minhagim amongst the Rishonim. Who reads the Manishanas? There's those who hold that it's a shaila. So if it's a shaila, because it's the lashon enough of the pasuk, when your son asks you, "Ma, what is this?" Mazos. The Rambam holds that the Baal Gada is the one who's correcting. So he's telling you, he's not asking you what, he's making a statement. How great, Ma Nishtana, how much this night is different. Right? So a person really needs to know, according to the Rambam Shita, Ma Nishtana Laila Zeh is not asking a question, it's making a statement. Ma Nishtana Laila Zeh.
Which is good, there's no answer, right? Because everyone's trying to figure what's the answer to the question. What's the answer to the question? The answer is there's no question. It's a statement.
It's a statement according to Rambam.
Right.
Rabbi Didya Weiler, who's the Talmud of the Rabbi Yonasan Eibshitz, says there's two ways to ask a question. There's a Tam Hadaber, Lama. You could say Lama, or you could say Ma. When a person's more likely, we have a Tosos in Megillah. There's two ways to spell the word Imole in Shas. So there's Imole with a Yud, Imole with or Imole with an Aleph. If it says Imole, it means Ilu Lo, if it would not be this way, or Ilu Imole with a Yud means if it would be this way. So when a person says Lama, he's asking Mavakish, why is it this way? For example, Lama Hareisa Lama Zeh. Why did you do this, Rabban Hashem? Why did you do bad to the people? Lama. right? Lama Yomru HaGoyim. Why should the Goyim be able to say this, right? So you're asking a taina. You're having a taina on the Rebbeinu Shalom when you say Lama. Why? Of a milas ma, you're masking to the inyan, right? Ma, you're asking, what is this, right? But you want to know hatam yisod hadavar. You're asking ma. So if you look at all the 4 questions of the bottom, it always asks for lashon ma. For example, the Chacham says ma ha'edus. What are these edus, right? The only question is the Rasha should have said lama avodas zos. He shouldn't have said ma avodas zos because he doesn't want this to be there to be this avodah. He should have asked ma. He should have asked lama, right? And he also said mazos. The time says, what is this, right? From the lashon of the pasuk. So he says maybe the teretz is stamazoi just to shava all the questions. We don't want to change the lashon of the nusuk. Fine. Or maybe we just lashon of pasuk. He says there's a tremendous hint that manishana halayla is meramis with very deep inyan. Is Rosh Tevis Haman. Ma mem nishana nun. Halayla is hey Haman Rosh Tevis. Why we remember Haman in the beginning of the Seder night, right? We should know that the Laila of this night, the Remes Shemapalos, we knew that his Mapalos was on Pesach night, right? For example, it says V'yavar Mordechai that the fast started right on that night, and then he died the next day. They were also in the spheres of the Omer, right? And that's when he died on the spheres of the Omer, right? And it ends up being that the Yom Pesach is the Laila Hu Nedadu Shanei Samelach, that the Banashon woke up. Laila, that he decided, let's wake up and not destroy all the Jewish people and kill Haman and get rid of Haman instead of Mordechai, was on Laila Hazeh of Pesach. What's the sushta? The Gra asks a question. The lashon of Laila, lashon of Yom is lashon Zachar. Lashon of Laila is lashon Nekeva. So it should have said Ma Nishana Laila Hazos, right? What's Ma Nishana Laila Hazeh? Fine. So Ma Nishana Laila Hazos, because you sowed every single mitzvah Haseish was Man Grama, except for this night. All the mitzvahs are always miyuchas to the yom. Why? Because that's the parsha of the zachar. Woman's not chayiv in mitzvahs that say shows man grama. Kiddush chodesh is not a kasher. We're not going to go into why kiddush chodesh is just the mitzvahs and davar. Fine. He's a bekasher balagoda manishtana lailazet that is a din of a zachar. Why is this night like a zachar that there's mitzvahs miyuchas specifically that never have that ever in Halator Kula, and that is called a zachar. The lashon manishtana lailazet. Fine. So he's a b'chai mitzvah. Be'emes inyan das miyuchas lenakeva. The concept of das is miyuchas to nekeva. How? Because we have the pasuk. It says Laila yechave das. What's yechave das? Chava. Chava is the concept of das. She ate from the Eitz das, right? Yechave das. So what's the pshat yechave das? Lashon chava. Ve'inyan ma is matri adam, right? Adam and chava are being miramis in this inyan. Fine. What's the gematria adam? The Sefer Emek Bracha says, what's the difference between this night and other nights? There's always a Zeichel Mitzrayim. So the Reb Chaim Soloveitchik said that there's 3 differences. What are the 3 differences? The 3 Chaluchim are that Sipa Yisim Mitzrayim has that it has to be Derech Shela. The Ben has to ask. Masha Enkein, when we do it in Kriyas Shema, you just have to be masked. You don't have to ask a question, go back and forth. The second is you have to tell Hishtadlish. You have to start with Maschinim Begnus, Messiah B'Shvach. How do we get down to Mitzrayim? What happened when we got to Mitzrayim? What were the makkahs in Mitzrayim? Tonight, you don't have to tell me how we got down to Mitzrayim because Yaakov and Yosef and all the brothers got into an argument amongst each other. And then Paro was hard in his heart. So what's the pshat that you have to tell the shalos? And another thing is, the last difference is you have to tell the tamei ha-mitzvahs. That anyone, the Ramil says, anyone who doesn't tell me the tam of Pesach, Matzu, Mara, he's not Yatzi, he's Day Sipa Yitzrayim. So Sipa has 3 different things. You have to tell the tamei ha-mitzvahs. You have to tell how we got down to Mitzrayim, and then you also have to tell us, right, the Derech Shaila. The emes is the Gimel Devarim all have one yesod to them. That this night, the B'Shelis, has to be Derech Shaila, the Ma'aseh Sheyatzim Menu Mitzvahs, how we got to these mitzvahs, right? The Tzarech Liyad Tamei Mitzvahs, you need to know the Tamei Mitzvahs. Every other mitzvah, when a person says to you, why are you putting on tefillin? Why are you doing the mitzvah of tefillin? We know there's a big Nefesh HaChaim that says you don't need to know the Tamei Mitzvah. You just need to do the Ma'aseh Mitzvah. This is the only mitzvah in Kol Torah Kula. When a person does the mitzvah, in order to have a kiyum of the mitzvah, he needs to know the time of mitzvah. Right? So we're asking, what's the difference between this night and other nights? That there's mitzvahs, miyuchas to this night, where these mitzvahs you have to have specifically the time of the mitzvah while you're doing it. The chiv mitzvahs, what is the inyan of Talmud Torah? Meaning that we know that Nekeva is not chayiv in Talmud Torah. This is the only night that all of a sudden that this is man grama, that anyone who's chayiv not to eat chametz is chayiv to eat matzah. And that women are also chayiv in the eating of matzah. There is no achilas mitzvah in Kol Torah Kula where the cheftza is. I have 5 minutes. So there is no mitzvah in Kol Torah Kula where there's an Achilas Chepsa Shel Mitzvah. The Karbanis, when the Kohen eats carbon, is not that he has a chiv to eat basar. There's a chiv in the din of carbon that part of the avoda is to eat that basar. On Shabbos and Yom Tov, there's no mitzvah to eat a specific food, right? You have to have simcha. We do simcha by basar v'yayin. But there is no mitzvah. The only mitzvah with the chepsa of the mitzvah, you need to eat a chepsa, which is matzah, mara upesach, right? Mara upesach. And we also mosif yayin, right? Dali kosas shel yayin. The only din where there's a chepsa shel mitzvah is on Leil Pesach. These mitzvahs. So what's the difference? The Eitz Hadas, according to Rabbi Meir, right? Rabbi Meir was yayin. According to the Rabbi Yehuda, it was chita. Why? Because he doesn't have das and to say Abba ve'ima until he has the tam duggan, right? There's a shitas in the Rishonim that says there weren't two different eitzah. The Eitz Hadas was the Eitz Chaim. The Eitz Hadas was the Eitz Chaim. So what was the nafkamina if you ate from the Eitz Hadas, the Eitz Chaim? What your kavanah was when you were eating. If you had the kavanah to say, I have kavanah that this should be Eitz Hadas, it was an isser of Eitz Hadas. If you had kavanah that this should be Eitz Chaim, then you would have lived forever. Whole thing was telling in your kavanah. So it says, so why does he hold that it's yayin? Because there's nothing that brought klola to the veld like yayin. We know like Gabi, other shown that there's man. So he says other sheet of Shlomo Melech, right? So So what's the pshat today? Today what we're eating is the Eitz Hadas. We're eating the Eitz Hadas. The matzah is chita, right? What's the pshat? We're eating ma neshana halayla zeh adam, right? And chavi yechav das bisman hazeh. What's the pshat that we're eating chepsa of matzah shom Eitz Hadas yechav das? The Rizal says you want to know what the Eitz Chaim is the Tamei HaMitzvahs. The Eitz Hadas and the Eitz Chaim is the whole concept of you knowing why you're doing mitzvah. The deeper a person knows what he does in mitzvah, is the pshat of how much he's misor in the mitzvah. So I wanted to say the pshat in hamin minute. So a person wants to make cheshbon nefesh. Manishan alayla zeh. Human being changes tonight. He needs to know the difference between Araham and Baruch Mordechai. What's pshat in himself? What's pshat in himself? Right? So what? Hamin min Torah. Yisod Laila. So if you want to wake the melech up, you have to be misara yourself. Why? Because you need a misara shlamata in order to bring up the misara shlamala.
Very nice, beautiful.
That's what I meant. Haman mina Torah minayin hamina eitz. Literally, I mean it's literally the.
Amazing.
Very good.
Thank you. And that was the matzah.
And there's the chita.
Shita. Very good. Okay, let's have a Wiseman, please.
10 minutes. Perfect.
9 minutes and 30 seconds.
Perfect.
Say hello to the
I'll give you
world.
extra 4 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Beautiful.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll tell you the matzah. Yeah.
So I think when you talk about the four sons, there's a lot can be said on them, and I think every year I kind of go back to the four sons. There's always something new to think about them. What's important is the idea is if we say Chacham Mahu, Omer, any of them is a Chacham. How do you define a Chacham? It's what he says, right? The Chacham Mahu is what Omer, and the rest the same thing with the Rasha is Mahu Omer. What we know that how we speak, how we talk, what our priorities are. That really, at the end of the day, is really what is going to define us. For better, for worse. It's it's there. It is. There's your whole scorecard. Is Mahu is based on what you say and what you do, what you tell other people also. No, you can't yomer gam la'acherim lenok. And is the idea is what we want to see from a chacham is a certain a level of consistency. Is that he does what he says, right? Like we always say, do as I say, not as I do, right? But the chacham is Omer if he's going to say and do the same idea. So I wrote this idea. I'm going to share with it. I wrote about a Dvar Torah last year on dental implants, and which are appropriate. Right? I like placing implants. It's about the Russia. It says Haggadah Shina. What does it mean? They knock out his teeth, right? I mean, we need child services. I mean, to what level are we knocking out his teeth to the point that you lose custody of the child because we just don't do that, right? I mean, so it's Haggadah Shina. So it says Russia Ma'omer Ma'avodosot Lachem Lachem Loew Lufishot Sietatzmo Min HaKlal Kofar Beker V'Afata Haggadah Shina. If you knock out his teeth, it says V'Afata Haggadah Shina Memlo Right? So if he was there, he wouldn't have been redeemed. So what does blunting of the teeth mean? First question. Second question is, why is the response in third person? It says lo li v'lo lo. It should say li v'lo lecha. It should say v'lo lecha. Who's he
It's like we're
speaking
not
to?
talking to him.
It's like we're not talking to him, right? We like he's in the room, but it's almost like
He's in the corner.
it's almost like he gave up on him, right? It's kind of like, all right, this is the way he is. If he's really a Russia, begeder Russia, right? I was thinking about it, what we talked about on Shabbos. In order to become a Ben Sora Morer, he first had to be a Geder Ben Sora Morer, right? So it's almost like everything, right? I thought that was that was not in here, but I was thinking about it tied in. It's Russia Morer. He was already Begeder Russia before he opened his mouth today. Meaning there's other things that he's been doing that have given his parents fits, okay? And that's going to tie into the idea of Haket Shina, which we're going to get into. Third question is, what's the nature of the son's wickedness? Are we really supposed to get physical with him? And how does that help anything, right? Violence never really solves anything, so what's the story? One idea is to view the Russia in light of his proximity to the Chacham. The wise son wants to know about the ritual, Mishpatim, Eidut, and Chukim, right? He wants to learn and ask questions, while the wicked son says how he feels. Russia, because the Chacham says, Vaya kish alcha, and the Russia says, Vahaya ki yomru. There's a unique idea. That's the first approach is that we have, if I'm asking questions, it's one thing. It means I want to get an answer. The Chacham doesn't necessarily mean he's a Chacham. I think we talked about it a few weeks ago, Pasha Shmini. Pasha Shmini, I said, a Chacham is Siyag l'Chacham Shnika. Right? The idea is a Chacham could already be get there, that he wants to hear what other people have to say. Yeah.
A Chacham doesn't think he's a Chacham. He has other people telling him he's a Chacham.
Exactly. Yeah.
Could be. But it's like, so that we have a Geder Chacham. But but the Russia is like, I'm not really interested in you in answer. I'm interested in telling you my opinion. Right? That's Vaya Kiyomer. The wicked son is not looking to change or get answers. So the father's remarks are meant for the other children at the table. And that would be one approach to the answer of li v'lo lo and not li v'lo lecha. Because it's like, if he's only talking, then he's not really listening. And therefore, we're trying to mitigate the damage of his comments to the other children, right? Sometimes we have that situation where one kid can be so disruptive, right? So how do you kind of like play that down so that the other kids aren't negatively impacted? My son looks to understand the mitzvah and how to best perform the obligations. The wicked son feels heart. I'm a good Jew in my heart. So what if I don't keep the Shabbos or tefillin, which ties into what Russell says? He's like, you're really a good Jew in your heart. So we want you to enjoy food without your teeth, right? You know, you kind of like, I don't need to do practice. I don't need to have the ritual. I feel like I'm a good Jew in my heart.
I'm spiritual.
So like,
I'm a spiritual guy.
I'm a spiritual guy. So what do you say? Haket Shinav is not get his teeth. The Russell says in his Haggadah Shel Pesach, which is that you're not get his teeth. Oh, really? So enjoy the food without your teeth, just like you think you can be a yid without the ritual. So that's Haket Shinav. Chida explains that for this reason, the main thing is
I actually have a question regarding the Russia. Why is it that the Russia is embodied over to the Seder?
Why is the Russia invited to the Seder? Because he's your son. He's not going to remain in Russia.
I always the classic line was there really are 5 sons. Right? Rabbi, right. There's the one that didn't make it to the Seder.
He's not going to
stay
in Russia. He's not going to stay in Russia.
This man started.
Right.
That's why they didn't have it during the Haggadah.
Oh, because everybody was there. Right. Then everybody was like 100% participation. Right. So why keep Shabbos? He knows Hashem created the world, so why does he need to refrain from Lacha? Well, that is not the case. There's Yinikayon, so it says, so blunt his teeth. Right? He's always saying anything. He says, it's enough I want to eat, right? I want to so he says, just as food needs thought to acquire speech and action to repair, so the same thing. So Haket Shinav is like, that's your shita. So we're gonna knock out your teeth, so because you can really live your shita.
Can I please interject for one minute?
Yeah.
I just always remember hearing this part in this music in my Seder. Look at the way Hakeh is spelled. Hey, Kuf.
Uh-huh.
Hey.
Yeah.
Not hey, kuf. Hey.
No, we're going to get to it because it's actually found in a couple places in Shas. Idea of Hikita
Which
Shina.
means what?
We're going to get to it. There's a Gemara in
Yeah.
Sota, Memtes Saman Aleph. So we're going to just about to get
Great.
to it. Okay. So he
It
says,
could either be sharpened or it could also mean to
Dull.
blunt.
Dull.
Yeah.
Dull the question.
Take some of the sharpness out of
another approach is view that there's nothing wrong with the wicked son's question. Wanting to know what the Karban Pesach is about is commendable.
Yeah.
But he shouldn't have not excluded himself. Okay, true, the Chacham excluded himself. Rachaim Kennedy said over in the name of Chaim Shmulevitz, Gamain Hevdel bein a Chacham sheshah ma idut asher tiva Hashem Elokeinu etchem v'Rosh Hashem Alachem al lahakir et beno ledata imhu Chacham v'nidkabel shono or Rosh Motzayasma min haklal, which is really a nice idea. He says, Rav Chaim Kanievsky Zatzal, saying it over, I'll translate it. He's like, sometimes you can have two kids say the same thing, but a parent needs to hear with an open mind where the kid's coming from. And sometimes just the kid messed up in what he spoke, and sometimes it's with kavana, and that nuance distinction is something that a parent needs to recognize. Chaim explains that the simple son is the more logical opposite to the wise son, but only the wicked son has the ability to become a chacham if he does teshuva. Right? The Russia may not even be as bad as the simple son, as the Tam, because a Tam will never become a chacham, but a Russia could. Right? You channel the energies in there. So the few Gemaras that talk about knocking out Shina. The first one I have here is by Gemara Sanhedrin, Kuf Tes Beis. Concerning Korach. Korach ben Yitzhak ben Kahaz ben Shehika Shine Molidav. Korach blunted the teeth of his parents because he shamed them with his conduct. Hakeh means to embarrass, right? It's not Hakeh necessarily knock out, but Hakeh there is the idea based on that Gemara is to embarrass. Mida Kenegavida, the father has suffered from the wicked son and been embarrassed. Now to say there's sure an embarrassing son, the father can make it uncomfortable for him. Make it clear that at times the son has shamed his father's conduct. So that's haket shinam, not necessarily to blunt his teeth, but in some ways at the table you can respond back to him in one way, like we talked about, not to answer him directly. He talks and you ignore him, or you give it back to him. But the idea is haket shinav is like we see by Korach that it's an embarrass. So we can embarrass mida keneged mida back to the child. Gemara in Sota, Rav Amar Elu Ketani b'nei Rishei Yisrael. So Rabbi said, there are certain situations where there will be Rishayim who lose their children when they're small. So Rabbi said, who plunders the day of small things? These are the small children of the wicked ones who die young, destroy their father's future. And when God sits in judgment of the parents, these children say before him, because you were destined to exact punishment from our fathers in the world to come, why did you blunt their teeth with the death of their children in a lifetime? These are the kids speaking. Like, why do I also have to be a casualty? If you're going to punish them in the next world, why do I have to be a casualty to punish them in this world? And that same language of hikita, or blunt their teeth, or hikita shanam. These Gemara, children have died for the sins of their parents. The children ask Hashem.
In this example, it's saying to sharpen it, or it's saying to
blunt,
dull it.
You blunted their teeth.
Blunt it.
Yeah. So children ask Hashem, you could have punished the actual sinner. So why did you punish the fathers through the children? So in the Haggadah, this is how I'm saying, this is how I apply it to the Haggadah. In Haggadah, we read, also you should blunt his teeth. The father should give it back to the son also, right? You've been taking it. Even before the Seder, we can be sure that the wicked son has given his parents plenty of agmas nefesh and hassles. The parents have had to put out the wicked son's fires. Now to Seder, the tables are turned. Instead of the wicked son blunting the parents' teeth with his actions, the father responds to the Rasha by blunting his teeth, whether he accomplishes with harsh but proper responses or by ignoring him. Second source from Sot is a little lower on the same amud. So we have a few different places in Shas where the idea of hikita shinav, or knocking out the not related to the wicked son. Rav Huna ishkach tumrasa dechunusa. I'm going to read it in English, but it's a cute situation. Rav Huna found a fragrant date, and what did he want to do it? He took it, wrapped it in his shawl, And then Rabbi, his son, came and said to him, I smell the aroma of a fragrant date. So Ravuna was excited that his son, my son, there's clear purity in you. The fact that you can pick up the aroma means you're also somebody chashuv and spiritual. As you're able to know, he gave it to him. Meanwhile, Rabba's son, right, the grandchild, shows up. Rabbi took the date and gave it to him directly, without even, he didn't earn it. He just gave it to him because that's what parents do. Ravuna said to Rabbi, my son, you have made my heart rejoice with purity, and you have blunted my teeth by showing your preference for your own son. The Gemara comments, this explains the folk saying that people say the love of fathers for the sons, the love of the sons is for their own sons more than for their father. So Rashi explains the blunting of the teeth is the display of love Rabbi gives to his son more than by so quickly giving away these special dates. So how can we apply that to Haggadah? That you blunt the wicked son's teeth by showering love to the other sons more than him. Haket shinav is the idea of, you see here, is showing the love not necessarily to him, but whatever love you would have shown to the Russia, you give it over to the other.
Rabbi, does that work for you?
children.
Doesn't work for you, Rabbi.
Doesn't work for me. You
Okay.
have to give the Russian all love.
Look, this is the bottom line. The Gemara says Haket shinav. I'm just applying an interpretation there that I think fits with the other sources that we're bringing, right? Because here the father shows more love to one instead of to the other, right? We see how the Haggadah writes, for me, not for him. Father's taking the Russia's words and finding a teachable moment for the other children. Is done with practically about ignoring the wicked son. Now, the wicked son, if he is introspective in the least, will potentially internalize that his father showing favor to the other brothers is a consequence of his actions and could spur change. If he thinks that everyone else is to blame, then of course the wicked son will go through the Seder and nothing will have changed. There's a pasuk in Tehillim, Reishis, that reflects on the wicked son. Reishis chachma yiras Hashem seichato l'chol aseihem tilo so meres la'ad. But that's in that which is that's interesting is Reishis chachma yiras Hashem is in capital Kuf Yud Aleph. Okay, but even before we get to the wicked son in Perek Kuf Yud Beis, because in Perek Kuf Yud Beis says Rasha Yir V'Kas Shinav Yecharek V'Namas Ta'avas V'Sham Dovid.
You say the pasuk
So we have
by the teeth again?
Okay, so we have a pasuk in that refers to the Chacham in Kitul Kuf Yud Aleph.
Yeah.
And we have a pasuk that refers to the Rasha in Kitul Kuf Yud Beis.
Right.
At the end of Kuf Yud Beis. So the Chacham precedes him, just like to say tonight, the wise get their wisdom through fear of God, which explains the wise son's question. He has Yiras Hashem, and now wants to know about all the mitzvot chukim, right? So, and we know Chacham lei yikach mitzvot ve'vil shepatayim yilabeit, right? The foolish comes to grief. We see so in studying chapter 12, we see how praiseworthy is the man who fears Hashem. Like the end of Kuf Yud Aleph continues into Kuf Yud Beis. And there's descriptions in Kuf Yud Beis of all the praises of a wise person. He has mighty in the land will his offerings be, wealth and riches are in his house, and his clarity endures forever. He is compassionate and merciful and righteous. Good is the man who is compassionate and lends. He conducts his affairs with justice. But the last pasuk in that chapter is Rasha Yireh V'Kas. So the Rasha sees the success of the Chacham. V'Kas Yecharek V'Names Tavas V'Sham Toved. He gnashes his teeth. And in some ways, that's just my conclusion. Ultimately, the biggest punishment is the one that you bring upon yourself. So Haket Shinav is Yecharek, and when I interpret it is the idea that the wicked gnashes their own teeth. He says how best to quiet the Rasha, live a Torah life filled with chesed, and try your best to pass those lessons to your descendants. Let them see your love of Hashem. And ultimately, doing all these things, the Rasha will blunt or gnash his own teeth when he sees the success of the upright and the righteous. So to say that the father doesn't have to gnash his teeth. He has to act like a good yid, giving tzedakah, fearing Hashem, and showing love for the mitzvahs leads the wicked son to blunt his own teeth without ever laying a hand on him. So lastly is the idea that Yecharek is the idea of the same thing, Hakat Shinav. The Hakat Shinav is you do the right thing. You do the right thing. If you do the right thing, the Rasha will grimace and feel like he'll gnash his own teeth when he sees the success of the Chacham and his own failures.
Listen, Rabbi, there's a lot of different mahalchim and chinuch.
100%. And at different times in history.
Yeah.
At different history, it was appropriate.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, beautiful.
Thank you.
I really appreciate that. Okay, Rabosai, Rabbi Kevin is now going to finish off the night for us. Comment down. You ready for me?
No, he's all right. It's okay. You can stay.
You ready for me? No comment.
Yeah, no.
Wait
Oh.
1 second before he starts. Can I just say something?
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
Rabbi Aaron.
First
Aaron,
of all,
you made it to
everybody
Vicky today.
amazing so far. Second of all, Rabbi Wiseman. So you're telling me I have permission to take away my love from my child and give it to my children who I love more?
No, he's not saying that. He's not saying that.
I don't
He said he
know.
wants to give one more love to one kid over the other.
Rabbi Blumstein is going to take away all the love from me and he's going to give it to, I don't want to say who.
Only with money, right?
The love is Mamela.
I didn't want to say it. You said it.
Only with money. Yeah, that's a song.
It's Mamela.
Okay.
Okay, we're coming.
So just
Love, it's not. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I have more Vartlach really, and a quick ones. But just before I do, so I was just thinking, you were talking about the Russia with Haggadah Shinov. So I don't know if it's a good sushtal or not, but Haggadah Shinov. So what do we do? How does an Eved go free? An Eved goes free if you knock at his eye, if you knock at his teeth. So what are we doing here? The Russia is saying, Ma avodas zeis lachem. What's going on tonight? What's this all about? Meaning ilu haya shom lehaya nigel. We're saying that you wouldn't have been saved because you don't have a shaykhs to going free. So the job of the father on the night when his Rosh son is sitting there is it's your job to give him his own personal Yitzias Mitzrayim. Haggadah Shinov, make him as he's a slave to his own life. You have to set him free. I mean, you have to figure.
I thought you were going to say the other thing. Avodim to Hashem.
And
So
Chanami, but he's an Eved to something else. You got to knock his tooth out to set him free from his master, the master that's the wrong master. So that way he can become.
I thought you were going the other way.
Either way, it could be not. It could be it's not a good sushtel. Yeah.
Do you
No,
believe that do you believe that Haggadah Shinov can mean being showing tough love to one kid who needs it more? Like if the Russia needs tough love, and like let's say another kid who's more of a chacham, you could be a little more gentle with them because like they naturally get it. Is that? Well,
I think we all. I mean, the idea is the Chochanara Pidarko. Every one of the four sons needs their own ways of answering them and educating them. So
right, but as you know, as a parent, not all kids need the same amount of time or the same type of parenting. So that's why I'm asking if that could be what Haggadah Shinov means.
tough love, yeah, in a number of ways, yeah.
Could be.
Right.
Shchaitas over here.
Okay, see the way. So just before we get into some of the Haggadah stuff, so there's a Gemara. The Gemara in Membeis and Psachim talks about the story of the people of Papunoi. Does anybody know about the people of Papunoi? You heard about the people of Papunoi? You know about the people of Papunoi. Well, we didn't learn it. You learned it before I started saying Daf Yomi. The people of Papunoi, I think it was Rav Masna. Rav Masna came, Rabbi knows what I'm talking about. Rav Masna came and he said over a halach. In Hilchas Matzah, the halacha is matzah is made of water mixed with flour. You make a dough and then you bake the dough. So the water has a special halacha. There's a halacha called the water has to be mayim shalanu. The water has to rest. It has to have a night until the next day, and then you take that water and you use it to make your dough. You knead it, and then you turn it into matzah. Very good. So Rav Master taught this halacha mayim shalanu, that the water has to be mayim shalanu when you make it. So the Gemara says that the people of Papunoi, who we told this halacha over to the next day, they came and knocked on Rav Master's door, and they said, Rav Master, we need your water. Can we have your water, please? And he says, what are you talking about? He says, you said yesterday in shul that it has to be mayim shalanu. It has to be our water. They completely misunderstood the word. The people of Papunoi thought when he said mayim shalanu, which any person who spent 5 seconds in yeshiva knows it means the water has to be hung over till the next day. But the people of Papunoi, what did they think? They thought he meant that Rav Masna was saying, got to come to my house and take our water. Mayim shalanu, meaning our water. This is the Gemara says. Peldik Gemara says, no. I meant you have to take water, the leftover. So the Avnei Nezer asked, what is this Gemara doing? What's the Gemara telling me over here? The Gemara is just trying to make fun of Papunoi. The people of Papunoi don't understand. It's like a Baal Tshuva who doesn't yet know the basic stuff. And all of a sudden, the Gemara is embarrassing the entire city of Papunoi, says the Avnei Nezer. Can you imagine if nowadays a Rav would get up and say, Okay, everybody, this year the matzah has to come from my matzah factory. If you don't buy the matzah from my matzah factory, it's treif, and you're all eating chametz. Pretty confident, most people, myself included, would be like, this rabbi is lost. He has no clue what he's talking about. He thinks I'm going to go buy his matzah. Why, is the water that comes out of his sink any more kosher than the water comes out of the other sink? Imagine the emunah pshuta that the people of Papunoi had. The rabbi said, Mayim shalanu. I got to go get the water from Rav Masa's house. Can you imagine the level of emunah a person has to have where the rabbi said it? That's it. The rabbi said it, I'm doing it. Do we live in a generation like that? Not so much. I don't know. I think the Hagdama to
like you said, like a very ignorant society, right?
But even in an ignorant society, I mean, do we have that level of emunah where
Certain sects of Jews they do.
certain sects of Jews, they do? I don't know. I'm speaking about myself. To me, I'm a skeptic. When the rabbi says a halacha, my instinct is,
And then the Vad was started.
and then the vad, and then another vad, and then another vad. Okay, Sephardi Jews have maybe a little bit of a mile over. I'm speaking to myself. To me, the Gemara it's a throwaway Gemara. You read it, it's like, okay, no, go right to the daf. But to me, that's a tremendous Gemara. Can you imagine the level of emunah one has to have? The rabbi just says something that's completely insane. The rabbi said, I got to use his water. Okay, I guess that's what if Hashem told the rabbis to tell me that I got to use the water, the emunah pshuta, and that's what the night of Pesach is. That's why I wanted to bring the Gemara. The night of Pesach, this is not a night for the Lamdanim. I mean, yeah, the Lamdanim have a great night. There's a great light, a lot of brisket tires and everything. We got out of Mitzrayim for what? For nothing. We did just because Hashem loves us. Let me ask you a question. Is there any conditional love with your own children? There's zero conditional love with your own children. With your own children, there's nothing they're going to do that you're ever going to be like, sorry, no more. I mean, maybe there's one or two things, the kaifer be'ikach chas v'shalom, but chutz from that, pretty much, there's almost nothing they can do. They can even be a Rangers fan. I mean, it doesn't make a difference. There are kids, right? And the love you have for them, the moment you start trying to describe it with words, you do it a disservice because it is so much beyond words. That's the love that Hashem. Can you imagine what love HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us? He took us out of Mitzrayim. We didn't deserve it at all. We didn't deserve it at all. And he took us out of Mitzrayim. Halalu avidav azara, halalu avidav azara. So Taka, why did he take us out? So Rashi says, I wrote it down somewhere. I quoted the Rashi somewhere. I wrote the Rashi down. Oh, Pasuk says, also Hashem li b'tzeisim mitzrayim. Because of this, Hashem did this for me by taking me out of Mitzrayim. Says Rashi, v'over she'ekayim mitzvosav. It's in order so that in the future I'm going to be mekayim a lot of mitzvahs. Which mitzvahs? Kegoin Pesach matzah u'mar halalu. Says Rashi on the pasuk of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Why did Hashem take us out? We didn't deserve it. Says no, because we're going to do a ton of mitzvahs in the future. Which mitzvahs? The Seder night mitzvahs. Pesach matzah u'mar. This means, right, that every year on Pesach, if you want to have a schus, retroactive schus, to have Yitzias Mitzrayim, you better do it the Seder night the right way. Because the Seder night is the only reason why he took us out of Mitzrayim to begin with. Pesach Matzah U'Marer of the future is what retroactively made it worth it. It's like Al Shem Sofo. Only because of which means you literally have it in your hands on the night in real time to be in Mitzrayim. Right? A person has to look at himself as if he's the one leaving Mitzrayim. I wasn't there, it was 3,000 years ago. No. You right now are the kiyum of the T'nai of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Hashem said, I'm going to take you out. Why? Because I know one day you're going to go sit by a Seder in Orlando or wherever you're going to be, and you're going to open up the Haggadah, and you're going to start doing Pesach Matzah U'Marer the right way. Which means, Chas v'Shalom, if you get to the Seder and you're blitzing through it and you're not paying attention to what's going on, you're basically telling Hashem you made a mistake. You have to, meaning that's why we're sitting here, by the way. I'm saying we're sitting here in order to make sure. I mean, just sitting here alone already puts us in that frame of mind where we're already to a certain extent showing a Kaddish, and every year we do that. Well, there's another question. Yeah, go ahead.
What you're saying sounds as if Hashem only took us out in order that we have a story to relive later on in the future. So in order to be a story, he took us out. That's the only reason why you take us out, you're saying.
Yeah.
And can I tell you?
Meaning the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had for us in taking us out. What do you do with someone who you love? You let him sit in your house all day? You give him a mission. You have him do something, right? Meaning if you have a child who you let, the worst thing you could do I mean, I don't want to quote from these low lives, but these big billionaires who are saying, I'm going to give 98% of my fortune to charity, and I'm only going to leave a little bit, which a little bit for them is, whatever it is for their children. There's a certain chachma to that. Why? Because you give your kid something to strive for, right? Meaning that's how you show love, by giving a mission. Meaning it's not that Hashem was saying like a game, like, oh, if you eventually do a mitzvah, so I'll take you out. It's more that I'm taking you out in order for you to do the mitzvahs, because that's the greatest thing for you. But ultimately, in the end of the day, your choice to accept that or not accept that retroactively shows Hashem you made a good decision. Again, within reason, obviously, Hashgacha Pratis plays a role. But
The Briskers, they say that the lashon of the pasuk is, it says that the Tugari Mitzrayim K'day Aper. It's not the pshat that the took us out.
the other way around, right. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so then one other thing, a couple of other things, but let's see what we have time for. Ironically, we're talking about the Seder, and everything I'm saying is completely out of order, but that's just because thoughts came into my head when they came in, and it is what it is. Okay, so the Ma'am Shalom we spoke about. Oh, by B'dikas Chametz. So what do we say? Kol chamira v'chamia dik b'shusi, right? What's going to be bottle, v'havi mevotel, whatever. So Reb Baruch Mezbej, just to contrast the Litvish with the Hasidish, Reb Baruch Mezbej says the following. Beautiful idea. It's a very Hasidish Torah, but Roy for who said it. He said that our ability, or really our responsibility, to remove evil from the world is really our responsibility, right? What does it say? The Gemara says that the person has to look at the world like it's an even scale, and if you do one mitzvah, you're machriya the whole world, the kafschus, and chas v'shalom lehepech, if you do an aveira, you're machriya the olam in the other direction, which means everyone is walking around in the world, should be looking at the world as if in their own life, in that very next moment, I could potentially either be a hero or a zero, and I have to figure out who I want to be. So says Rav Baruch Mezbej, Kol chamira v'chamia de'ika, all of the rishus that's in the world is bershusi. I can control it. Hashem, and also Hashem gave me permission. I have rishus. It's in my domain to get rid of it. It's a deep idea. I mean, I know it sounds cutesy and Hasidish, and I usually don't like to harp on those types of it. Kol chamira v'chamia de'ika, anything that's in the world, all the rishus that's in the world is bershusi. I have it. It's in my hands. Hashem gave it to me. We don't live in, some communist world where the rules are set and I have no choice. We are free to decide to be the one who's machriya l'kaf chus or to be machriya l'kaf chova. A gematria I'm going to skip. That's for after. Say it on my Freya we spoke about. Okay. You mentioned Kaddish Urchatz Tavav, right? So Kaddish Urchatz, so also another Chasidish Yismach Moshe says this. So he said like this, it says you get to Kaddish Urchatz Karpas. So Kadesh, a person becomes close to Kadosh Baruch Hu, Kedusha, he gets close. What's the first thing that happens when a person comes close to Hashem? He realizes how far he's from Hashem. Meaning, the holier you get, the more close to Kadosh Baruch Hu you are, the more you realize how far away you are. So therefore, it's Kadesh or Chatz, meaning once I'm a Kadesh, I have Kedusha, I now realize I have to clean myself even more. Because so says the Yismach Yisrael, but this is a very dangerous machshava. Because a person, if that's all he has, is that every time he gets closer, he sees every time I get closer, it's like I'm farther and farther away. It's going to feel like I'm going in the wrong direction. A person can get sabrach and get depressed over that, to see that I'm never ever arriving where I need to arrive to. So he says that's why we have to remember karpas. The first thing that comes, what's karpas? Karpas is a root vegetable. The entire vegetable in the ground. It's covered in dirt. It's disgusting. You wouldn't even know it's a plant if you pass by it. It looks like a weed on the ground, because everything that's valuable about it is hidden and uncovered in garbage. And on Pesach, what happens? That thing gets put on the most holiest table of the year. So don't ever think that just because a person feels like he's farther and farther away, that he can't immediately be plucked out by the top and be taken and put on the table. Meaning Kadesh Urchatz, don't forget Karpas also, meaning you're never so far away from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, it goes back to the same idea, a father with a child. You're never so far away from Hashem. Again, this obviously connects to the Russia also, and exactly what the Russia is even doing at the Seder. Another question. Why is there no bracha? And there's tons of kashas. Why is there no bracha on Tzibur Tzibur Mitzrayim? Million answers. Famous answer is, if it's called Hamar B'Lisapa, Reis Meshubach, so it's a limitless idea. You can't make a bracha on something that has no shiur. Okay, very nice Litvish answer. Wonderful. We'll say another Hungarian Hasidic Litvish. Rishonim, that's true. and not from Litha. Right. So Chassam Sofer has a beautiful answer. Chassam Sofer says, what's happening on the night of Pesach? We're becoming a nation, meaning up until Yetzias Mitzrayim, we're just a goy mikarev goy. Yetzias Mitzrayim happens the night of the Seder. We're becoming Jewish. This is like our July 4th. This is our national holiday, our celebration of our identity as a national identity. So he says, so why don't we make a bracha before we sing Yetzias Mitzrayim? He says like this. He says, if what's happening tonight is we're becoming a nation, then really we're no different than a ger. What's a ger? A ger is a guy who decides to come into Yiddishkeit. Now the halacha is a ger. The way he becomes a ger, first thing he does, if he's a man, he's got to go get a halachas bris. He's got to do a bunch of different things. But the way it ends for both a man and a woman is in a mikveh. Now the halacha is when they go into the mikveh, they're not Jewish.
Only when you come out.
So only make a bracha when they come out of the mikveh, because when they go in, they're not Jewish. So what are we doing on Pesach night? Like a ger, just like a ger. When does he make his bracha? Only when he gets out of the mikveh. So too, a Jew on Pesach night is becoming a Jew. You're really becoming a Jew tonight. We're all gerim on the night of Pesach. So that means at the beginning of the Magid, we're not Jewish yet. We got to wait all end the Magid. Asher Gal Yisrael. The Gal Yisrael bracha we make at the end. That's when we make the bracha, just like the ger makes the bracha when he gets out of the mikveh. That's the Chassam Sofer. The Sfas Emes has a little bit of a different shot. He says that why do we not make brachas in general on Ben Adam Lechavere, right? We say the reason why we don't make a bracha on Tzipis Yitzrayim is going to be the same reason. You don't make a bracha on something that even if Hashem had not been mitzavi you would have done it anyways. You make a bracha on Kibbut Aveim. Why? Because what do you mean? It's my father, my mother. How can you not show them respect? What kind of person doesn't have gratitude to his parents? You see someone sick, you visit them. What kind of a human being doesn't go and do that? You don't make brachas on things you're going to do anyways. Asher Kedishanu Mitzvot V'Tzivanu. Again, there's opposite vartlach to that also, but the idea is you don't make brachas on things that Hashem didn't even need to be mitzavi. Why was he mitzavi us? Because he loves us and he wants us to get schar to do a mitzvah. But even if he wasn't mitzavi us, you're going to visit the sick, you're going to give tzedakah, you're going to help people because if you have any sensibility, you're going to do those things anyways. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Had we not taken us out, we would have been done with forever. So this isn't a night of. This is a very logical, sichlius dika mitzvah. Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. How could you not at least once a year acknowledge, hey, thanks a lot. So how do I make a bracha on a mitzvah that I would have done? You would have to do it anyways. Now again, is it possible that if Hashem wasn't mitzvah us to do Sipur Yisrael Mitzrayim, we would all get together and do all this stuff? Efshar not. But the point is that we don't make brachas on those things that are sichlius dika mitzvahs. Also, I don't know what's the time. Oh, it's 9:01. Do you guys have to go? You okay? It's all right. Yeah. Oh, he's doing it over there. Okay. If you guys want, I don't want to belabor it. If you guys have places to go, people to see, stuff to learn. I don't know. Yeah. So the pasuk are like this. What did it say? That after at the beginning of the Haggadah, Kulan Chacham, Kulan Nevanim, Kulan Yodim Satayra, everyone's chayev. No matter who you are, you have a chiyuv l'sap. We call him Ma'aber l'sap and raise him a shubach, and then it immediately goes to the story of these 5 Tanoim. Who are the Tanoim? So we have Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus, Rabbi Yeshua ben Chanina, we have Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Rabbi Tarfon, and Rabbi Akiva. Why don't you tell me the names? There's a million Tanoim I could list. You could probably tell me 10 off the top of your head. Why these 5 Tanoim? What's so special? So from different places, and I didn't look this up, I saw this written. Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus, there's a Gemara, a Tosfos in Saita on Daf Chaf A, or Chaf Beis. I wrote it wrong, so I'm not sure. Says he was a Kayan. Rabbi Yeshua ben Chanina was a Levi, and Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah was a Kayan. That's from B'Metzia, Daf Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. Then Rabbi Tarfon was a Kayan. That's a Gemara in Pesachim Ayin Beis Amud Beis. And Rabbi Akiva, although he wasn't a ger, he came from a family of gerim. So this means that these 5 Tanaim either came from Shevet Levi, or they were from gerim. Meaning what? They weren't there. Didn't have a shibud. These 5 Tanaim. What did we just say? Kulanu Chachamim, Kulanu Nevaim, Kulanu Yodim Esatayra. You still have a chiyuv to be about 1 second. You have to be a chiyuv to talk about the fact that you were mishubadim ayinu b'par b'Mitzrayim and Hashem took us out. You see, the raya from this story is that these were 5 people. Had they been there, they wouldn't have been part of the shibud. They're from Shevet Levi or they're from Gerim, which means that they have a chiyuv. Why? Why do they have a chiyuv? They're part of the shibud. Teretz says, Ima anochi b'tzari says. What did Moshe Rabbeinu see? When Moshe Rabbeinu saw one of his fellow Moshe was also not part of the shibud. He was in Shevet Levi, and yet he led the whole thing. He saw one of his Jewish friends being taken advantage of by a Mitzri. He sees his people being destroyed, You see your people being destroyed, whether you yourself are being. Here we are in America. You see people in Eretz Yisrael never going through what they go through, and you like Dovid was speaking the other day when he spoke on Shabbos, that you could literally sit here and not feel that Yidden in other places in the world are going through struggles and pain, and that doesn't affect you. Oh, maybe it's just not a good time to go to Eretz Yisrael now. That's how it affects you. That's not the way a Jew lives. The way a Jew lives, these 5 Yidden who didn't have a chiyuv, they would have been fine. They had no shibud. Teretz is the raya comes from the fact that they were sitting the whole night. And then just one other idea. I'm gonna have a bunch, but yeah, go no, absolutely.
That's how you started the Russia. It's not that he was a couple of because it's missing the car.
It's because he took himself out of the klal, not like these 5. Right. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. There's a Shleima. Oh, you got. Sorry.
One of the reasons that they at the Haggadah lists different rebbeim that came from that were from Gerim is to show that just where you come from does not determine where you
Absolutely.
go.
100%. No questions about it. No question about it. That's. I mean, if anything, that is true, as well as you see from the fact that the Rosh is listed in of the 4 sons. I mean, it's Adrab. I think it's probably the most common observation is that in chinuch, right? I'll tell you, I wasn't going to say this, but if you look at the words Rosh Mahu Omer, Maha Avodah Zos Lachem Lachem V'Loi Loi Ulefi Shahitzi Atzas Min HaKlal Kafar Be'ikar. And here's the important line: V'af ata hakayashinav. What's the v'af? And even you. What's the even? Just say Lefi Shahitzi Atzas Min HaKlal Kafar Be'ikar. Ve'ata hakayashinav. What's the ve'af ata? And even you, as if to say, what? It's your fault. Dad, you have a Russia for a son? That's not on the Russia. That's on you. It's your responsibility. Something you did. I don't know what, but it's something missing in you. It's not his job to fix his problem. It's your job to fix his problem. That's what a father's supposed to do. It's ve'af ata, meaning you have a Russia. Mazel tov, you have a chacham for a son, and you have a tam for a son, and you have a shena. You have a Russia for a son. Whose fault is that? The Russia's fault, or is it the father's fault? It's the father's fault. So ve'af ata, meaning I think that's the exact point. The Russia is sitting
exclusively.
Obviously not. Adrabah. I'll tell you. I'll give you a distinction. Ve'af ata, which is plural, not plural. It's a masculine you. Va'af ata.
Right.
Look at She'enu Yodei Lishol. It's the same pasuk, except for She'enu Yodei Lishol at Pesachlo. Here we're talking to the father, and here we're talking to the mother. When you have a kid who doesn't know how to ask, it's the mother's responsibility to open up his heart. It's at Pesachlo. Talk to the mother. We're talking to the mother over here at Pesachlo. When we're talking to the Russia, you have a Russia. No one goes off the derech because his mother. People go off the derech because their father's too harsh. Going off the derech because your mother, it doesn't happen. Mothers are loving, they're supportive. People go off the derech because their father doesn't provide the right type of discipline, or when they provide that discipline, it does not come from love, it comes from anger, it comes from shortcomings, or whatever it is. Very rarely do people say, oh yeah, and it was my mother who pushed me off the derech. Doesn't happen. It comes from the father. Again, obviously there are exceptions. I'm not trying to say that this is always the case, but I see it in my own life. I see my wife. There's just she can open up their hearts. It's the mistakes that we make when we are a little bit sometimes too rigid, because maybe our own shortcomings that we see in our kids, we're like, we want to fix them right now so that they won't grow up to have our own problems. And that, ironically, is what pushes them away, right? But anyways, I wasn't going to say that, but I think that idea is very, very, very relevant to that point. So what does it say? It says, so those 5 Tanoim, they were sitting around. The hey here is a little bit funny, right? Meaning, v'hayu misaprim b'yetzias Mitzrayim kol halayla would be fine. Kol osa layla would also be fine. Kol osa halayla is a little bit of a yiter in the kra here, so to speak. So the Fer Shlomo says the hey over here, the hey hayediyah, which is usually referring to a very specific layla. He says v'hayu misaprim b'yetzias Mitzrayim kol osa halayla. This is not referring to that night; it's referring to the night of Golus, meaning halayla, the darkness of Golus. How are we going to survive? Only if only if during the entire duration of Golus, when things are as dark as they could possibly be, we never forget to not stop talking about the love that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has for us, that He took us out of Mitzrayim. Because if it wouldn't be for that, it wouldn't survive, which is why, what did the Talmidim come and say to them? Rabbi, Higiyazman Kriyash Shel Shachris. The only way we're ever going to get to the Higiyazman Kriyash Shel Shachris of Milvado, which is Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, the light of day in the morning when things are, the only way we're going to get there is if during the entire night, it's V'hayu Misakrim Kol Halayla B'Yetzias Mitzrayim. If you don't stop talking about Hashem, you got to talk about it all the time. My kids made my birthday a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, and my daughter, she likes very artsy, so she made a thing, like a little chain. She drew a little card, and on the keychain it said, "Daddy, you're the second best daddy in the world." And I flipped it over, and it said, "Because Hashem's the best." Mm-hmm. Now I know on the one hand, my heart was like a little broken when she said I'm the second best, but when you flipped it over, and she was like, and Hashem's the best, you can't stop talking about him. There is no such thing as a point where it's like, all right, enough, die, right? That's how you get through Gullus. That's how you get through difficult times. That's how you get through a lot of shrekul things. One last thing, and then we can, maybe two. Yeah. Okay. V'hisha amda, because a lot of people have the vav, the hey, the yud, all the different things we spoke about on Shabbos. V'hisha amda. The language is a little funny. V'hisha amda. It comes in the middle of nowhere. It doesn't seem to be contextual. We just talked about Yachal Rosh Chodesh, a bunch of drashas. Then it says you cover the matzos, you pick up the kais. Until that point, you have the matzos wide open, and then V'hisha amdala v'seinu v'lanu, and we start continuing to darshan. All of a sudden, now is the time to cover the matzos and hold the glass up, which generally is a sign during the Seder when we're about to focus on the positive, right? When we're focusing on the negative, open the matzos, put the kos down. When things are positive, pick the kos up, cover the matzos. Cover the lechem oni, pick up the malchus, put it down. We're always almost like physically symbolizing what's happening in the actual Haggadah. V'hish amda lavaseinu v'lanu. Let's read the words. And it, and she, or it, she'amda, that stood for us, lavaseinu and lanu, for us and our forefathers. What is that? Shelo echad bilvad amalanu lechased. It wasn't just one person who tried to kill us. Every single generation, they stand there waiting with their scythes and knives and guns and gas chambers to kill us. This is what I'm lifting a cup for. I'm lifting a cup and covering the matzahs about how, thank God, we got all these goyim who are just waiting to kill us. Does that make any sense? It makes no sense. Keep the matzahs open. This is not a good thing. Obviously, the answer could be but that's when we should. That's where we should cover the matzahs and open up and pick the cup. But what's this whole business? That they're always trying to kill us. This is something we're proud of? So, I mean, on the surface, it sounds like an insane assumption. And the answer is, of course, it's exactly what's kept us. The greatest thing that's ever happened to the Jewish people, or let me say it better, there's a quote from, I forget the guy's name, Goldstein, Schmigel, something like that. He's a Zionist, but he said a great idea. Beautiful line. He said, I'll butcher it. I wrote it down somewhere. Where did he write it? Oh, Nachum Goldman. I don't know where he's from. Zionist, Eretz. Anti-Semitism is good for Judaism, but bad for the Jews. The lack of anti-Semitism is good for the Jews, but bad for Judaism. Meaning, what kept us going? The fact that they want to kill us. The fact that, do you know what it's like to be a people of 13 million? I mean, in the most loosely defined terms, 13 million. I mean, if we're really being honest about what that number should be, it's probably closer to like 7 or 8 million. Because, I mean, Ben Stiller is a Jew. He's not. As far as a Jew, as well as a guy. Like, when we're defining Judaism as 15 million people, and that's less than 0.25% of the population of the entire world. And you cannot open a paper without us being in the paper. Why do we have a target on our back? If you ask an anti-Semite, why do you hate the Jew? He could not give you an answer. Because when the times are good, it's because they have money. And when they're not, because they're parasites. Which one is it? What do they hate about us? We're a variable. They fill it in with whatever is in the time, which means there's nothing inherent. Which means, why do they hate us? Because Hashem told them to hate us. Hashem put it in them to hate us. Why? It's a chesed. Because if it wouldn't be for the guy who wants to destroy us, throw us in a gas chamber, whether it's Paro or Haman or Hitler or whoever, if it wouldn't be for that guy who wants to destroy us, we would be with the Egyptians and the Phoenicians and the Assyrians and all the other people who have absolutely no clue where they are. It's specifically a chesed of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's why we lift the cup before V'hisha Amda. V'hisha Amda. What made us stand? We have a target on our back. We're the reason this whole thing exists. Can you imagine that? Hashem created a whole world with 7 billion people in it. And it's all for the 15 million, let's be honest, 7 or 8 million. And of those 7 and 8 million, how many of them are actually like, I don't know, putting on tefillin? How many of them are learning the daf? How many of them are actually, and again, I don't mean to compare better or worse. I'm just pointing out how many people are taking the message of the target. What did Hitler say in Mein Kampf? I don't like to quote him so much, but he wrote it in Mein Kampf. The Jews are I forget the exact language I translated, scourge. I hope I'm pronouncing that word right. Scourge. I'm not sure. Scourge. We are a blot on the world that he was trying to create, because we are a walking, talking. We're a walking, talking group of ethics. We represent the fact that one has to go and be better than themselves, and that's a problem. If you're someone who is looking to just control, dominate, survival of the fittest, why shouldn't the lion eat the whatever it wants to eat? Why shouldn't it do it? Why shouldn't Hitlers of the world run the world? Let's be honest. We all have a little bit of Hitler in us. We all have a little bit of I want to dominate. I want to win. I don't care what it does to people. We all have that little bit, whether it's in business or other things. And yet, the only thing that keeps us from being that animal, I hate to quote, I'm not quote Goyim over here. Jordan Peterson says this all the time. He says, you should be a monster. You should be a monster and control it. Don't be a weak person. Be a monster. Just don't act like a monster, right? Just you have that's what it is. We're a walking, talking like to Hitler. That's why he needed to destroy us. He may not have even been able to really truly articulate it, but that's why we exist, and that's why we have a target on our back. That's the Vihisha Amma, and we say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, thank you for that. Which means obviously we don't daven for tzaras. We don't want Hashem. We like it. It's nice here in America. It's very good. We like the fact that, you know, we get to joke about Biden. He's the worst. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he's the equivalent of what we always thought as He's like, it's like a dummy, an idiot. He's like, I mean, they've been really evil, terrible people, right? We're blessed that we have that. But at the end of the day, really, we're davening to Hashem, but we don't want those things. But when they happen, so what does it say? The Gemara Menachos. Maybe you'll tell me where. I think it's in the Nun somewhere. Gemara Menachos says, I think it's quotes a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, that Klal Yisrael are compared to an olive tree. Compared to an olive tree, they're compared to an olive. Why? Because just like an olive, right? You only get the oil when you squeeze it. When you squeeze the olive, you crush it. What does it say? By Tetzava, to Moshe, to bring them shemen, zayis, zach, kosis l'ma'or. Kosis. What's kosis? Crushed olives. You want to get the oil, you got to crush it. That's how you get the good out of the Jew. You want the shemen in the Jew, you got to squeeze them. I'm not saying we daven to Hashem to get squeezed, but that's how you get the good. That's how you get the goodness out of us. You squeeze us. You wear it with a badge of honor. I mean, I know it sounds a little crazy to say it. We obviously don't want to be subjugated and persecuted, but that's the Vihisha Amda. Last thing from the Belzer Rebbe, I think it's a beautiful idea. It really goes back to the beginning. I told you it's completely out of order. The Belzer Rebbe says, if we do B'dikas Chametz, what do? We have a feather, we have a candle, we have a wooden spoon. Don't ask me what that's about. And what else is there? And a bag. And we have maybe some tinfoil with some chametz in it, scattered around. And what happens? We do b'dikas chametz, we get everything together, we get rid of all the ra, and then you burn it all. He says, I understand the spoon, I understand the feather, I understand the bag. That stuff got to burned. Touches chametz. You got to burn it. Why do you got to burn the candle? Candle's not touching anything. You're holding it in your hand, you're lighting it. Why can't you just take the candle, stick it back in the drawer, use it against something else? It's a good source of light, and especially before the times of electricity, you might need it. Why are we burning something that does not come into contact? Says the Belzer, a beautiful idea. I think beautiful idea. He says, anything that you use in this world to find a flaw, that has no use in this world. Obviously, you have a mitzvah. You got to go look for chametz. But if you're using it to find a flaw, it's being used to look for chesronos. You're looking to find chametz. You're looking to find problems. This is not the Jewish way. We don't look for problems. We look for solutions. We try to find the positive in people. The Belzer Rebbe said, unbelievable. Okay, that's it. That's what I got. Apsach Leah said, Belzer Rebbe said.
Tomorrow, but if you need it tomorrow night, I don't know if I can get it till Thursday. If you need it sooner, I can.
Hello?
If you have someone who can get it.
Shkoyach.
Can you post this tonight?